How's it going, guys? Nervy Gamer here, and this is going to be my top 10 favorite games of 2023. Now that the year is about to close, it's about time I actually pick out games that I really enjoyed this year, and I gotta say, there was a lot of good titles that came out and I really enjoyed. There were a few titles that I kind of wish I had time to play, but obviously due to time and work and stuff, I haven't really had a lot of time to actually play the other titles. However, there might be some reviews in the near future, so hopefully look out for that. But as of right now, there's a lot of games here that I picked out for 2023. So without further ado, let's get started with the countdown video. Number 10, Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 was a game I was sort of iffy to actually put on this list originally. Mainly because I thought the game was okay, and it's definitely not as good as the first game. And I love the first Spider-Man game. The first Spider-Man game, in my opinion, is easily, not just one of my favorite Marvel games of all time, but it's definitely I would say one of the best superhero games of all time. I mean, it's up there with a lot of the Batman Arkham games, but I definitely think it was a lot better than most of the Batman Arkham games. Not to say those games are terrible or anything, I just think it's a lot better because of the way that the game is. Now, when it comes to the sequel, though, on the other hand, the sequel, I feel, is definitely a game that I feel like could have been so much better. Not by story, even though I feel like the story is... The setup itself is okay, but I feel like the story could have been a little more stronger and could have been on par with the first one. But with that being said, the game is still a lot of fun. That's kind of why I actually put on this list. And yes, due to the controversy with the way Sony and Insomniac Games kind of went with this game, to be honest with you, I'm sort of both sides. On the one hand, I agree with a lot of people based on how they're kind of catering to the woke crowd and how it sort of kind of correlates to the way Last of Us Part 2 was. But at the same time, I also feel like those are kind of out the window for me because at the end of the day, the gameplay and the way everything is way better than the way the story was. I mean, to be quite honest with you, the Mary Jane levels, which, yes, I agree, could have been not even in this game because I don't even understand why. I mean, I'd be okay if they actually only put one or two levels, and that was fine with how they did in the first one. But in this, they gave her 5 or 6 different levels, and I mean, that's fine, but I don't think Mary Jane Watson needs a lot of levels. I like Mary Jane Watson as a character, but I don't think she's the best character in Spider-Man. The game is called Spider-Man, it's not called Mary Jane Watson. I'd be okay if they made a game based on Mary Jane Watson, but unfortunately, the game's about Spider-Man, not Mary Jane Watson, so I don't think I really want to play a shitload of Mary Jane Watson levels. Now, with that being said, when it comes to the game itself, I actually really like Spider-Man 2. Even though I feel like the game is lower on the list, but that's because, again, I don't think it's as good as the first game, and I also think it was okay. But I still consider it one of my favorite games this year because I actually did have a lot of fun with this game. The story, yeah, it could have been a little bit better, but the gameplay is really what mattered. I love still playing as Spider-Man. I love playing as Miles. I mean, everything as a whole, the game is a lot of fun to play. If they ever make another one, which I hope Insomniac Games actually makes it a lot better than what this game was, I still would like to play it, and I'm hoping to see what they're going to do with the next Wolverine game. Number 9, Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is probably my favorite fighting game this year. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I love the Street Fighter franchise. This one, I was actually really impressed with how I got addicted to this game. And I usually don't play a lot of fighting games, because I mean, I've been kind of out of fighting games for a long time. Minus Dragon Ball FighterZ, that was probably the only fighting game that I probably play a lot, especially when it first came out. But then afterwards, I kind of got out of the fighting space until Street Fighter 6 came out. When Street Fighter 6 came out, it just completely blew out the window for me. I got really addicted to it based on how I am in tournaments, playing with friends online. This game just completely was addicting. I can't even tell you how many hours I actually put in this game, especially with friends. Now, the only thing I could say about this game that I wasn't a big fan of was the way Capcom does the cosmetics. Capcom, I really feel like needs to get better with the way the cosmetics are, because their Ninja Turtles DLC, I would probably say I was more disappointed with the way that turned out because they could have done so much better with that. And I'm kind of hoping they don't do that with the Spy Family collaboration that's coming out, which I hope to God it's not going to be the same way they did with Ninja Turtles. But with that being said, this game is just a lot of fun to play. I got really addicted to it, and not to mention the story mode. The story mode was even the best too. I mean, I'm not really the full expert when it comes to the Street Fighter lore, but the story mode was also a lot of fun too. I really like how they actually did a good job with it. And the voice acting for a lot of the characters was really improved as well, which I really like. I was most especially a big fan of the way Chun-Li was, and quite honestly, Chun-Li was really good. Now, with that being said, I really like Street Fighter 6, and I definitely recommend it for anybody who's big into fighting games, or just want something to play in tournaments. This game is definitely the best way to do it. Number 8. Sonic Superstars. I think I mentioned in my remakes and remasters video that I don't really play a lot of the new Sonic games anymore. Mainly because I feel like Sega, every single time they make a Sonic game, it's either good or bad, and a lot of times it's either really good or really shit. And to be quite honest with you, for some reason, I just don't have the patience anymore to do it. Now, when it comes to like games nowadays, when it comes to Sonic Mania was probably the only good Sonic game I actually really liked. And yes, I know a lot of people will say that Sonic Frontiers are really good, and people have actually begged me to play that game. I'm on the verge of playing that game. Don't worry, it might actually do a review on it also, but I'm still in the process of playing it. It will happen. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Superstars, it actually got my interest. I mean, the fact that it's about classic Sonic and it does have a lot of the classic Sonic levels, but it's in a modern version of it, it actually looked pretty appealing, and it definitely kind of got me back into playing the Sonic games. After playing Superstars, I was actually very impressed with most of the levels that they did in here. I mean, to be quite honest with you, it's kind of like what they did with Sonic Generations. They kind of took most of the original Sega Genesis levels and made them more in a modern level, but instead it's more classic, and a lot of people remember them and actually really enjoy them. Now, when it comes to each level in this game, I actually think that they could have done a little bit more with it, which I agree with people. Like, they could have added more variety, where, like, they could have added, like, other new levels besides, like, a lot of the ones that people remember. But, again, when it comes to just the game itself, it actually is pretty good. I do like a lot of the special stages, and they kind of did keep that in line with this one, which I thought was kind of cool. The bosses, I mean, they could have done more bosses, and they could have also done more with, like, the story, because I know a lot of Sonic fans really wanted more variety to this game, and that's kind of one of the biggest downfalls for a lot of people. Was like they could have done like so much more with it, with like the variety and like story and like more levels and more things to do, which I can understand. I mean, obviously, you know, with the Sonic game you kind of want more, but again, that's kind of what a lot of the Sonic games now, it's kind of what you get from Sega. But when it comes to like even the music, which is actually kind of another complaint I actually have, the music I feel could have been a little bit more. I mean, when it comes to variety, like, usually Sonic has a lot of good music, and I usually really dig a lot of their tracks. For some reason, Sega does a really good job with most of the tracks in the Sonic games, but for some reason, they just kind of, like, miss the mark on it, and that's kind of one of the biggest downfalls for it, I guess. But when it comes to everything with Superstars, I definitely think it was actually a lot of fun, and it's definitely one of the better Sonic games I've played in a long time, for sure. Number 7, Disney Illusion Island. Illusion Island was a game I kind of didn't really know what to expect, especially when it first got announced. I mean, to be quite honest with you, Disney kind of has been out of the video game industry for a long time, ever since they kind of closed their gaming division. I mean, the whole downfall of Disney Infinity is one of the main reasons why they don't make video games anymore. The only good video games they actually make now is Kingdom Hearts games, and Dreamlight Valley I thought was actually a pretty good Disney game. I mean, for a game that's kind of reminiscent to Animal Crossing, it was definitely a lot of fun to play, and it was definitely one of my favorite games last year. But with that being said, when Illusion Island came out and it got announced, it actually looked like it was going to be pretty interesting. And the fact that it was a little bit similar to a lot of the old Mickey Mouse games, it actually kind of got my interest, and it actually got me really wanting to play it. And after playing the game, I actually had a lot of fun playing it. It's obviously reminiscent to those old games, and it actually feels like I'm playing the original Castle of Illusion with the way the gameplay is, and it's just a lot of fun. You get to switch between Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy, and obviously you could also play as Mickey. The only thing I kind of wish they could have done was maybe add more characters instead of just like the main 4, because not to say I don't like any of the main 4, it's just I kind of wish they could have added other Disney characters you could play as besides like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy and stuff. But with that being said, this game is a lot of fun, and it's definitely a game that I recommend anybody who's big into platformers or big into Disney. I recommend you play. It's definitely a game I really like to play. Number 6. Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy was a game that was very anticipated to play this year. I mean, ever since it first got announced and the way that the game was getting promoted, the hype was through the roof for this game, especially for a lot of Harry Potter fans. I mean, it's been a long time since Harry Potter actually had a really good game. I mean, minus the older games, which I'm actually a big fan of the old PS1 games, and even the Lego Harry Potter games, which I actually really like a lot of the Lego Harry Potter games. Not a big Lego person, but I actually really like a lot of the Lego Harry Potter games. For Hogwarts Legacy, though, this was a game that I pretty much was really excited to play, especially for a lot of people that were big fans of Harry Potter. I've probably been into Harry Potter for, I don't know how long, like the longest time I've been watching the older movies, reading the books. I mean, I've been probably a fan of Harry Potter for most of my life at this point. Now, when it comes to how this game is and based on the concept, I really dig the concept. I mean, this was a game that I feel like everybody waited for. The fact you can actually be a student like Harry Potter and like be in Hogwarts and just do the same shit that he does in a lot of the movies, it was just surreal, and it kind of just blew a lot of people away. You can level up your wands, level up your abilities, beat bosses, explore through Hogwarts, go through the whole student training levels. I mean, to be quite honest with you, this game, for a lot of people, this was a game that everybody wanted. The fact that you could basically do the same stuff as Harry Potter is just surreal to me. And I actually really think they did a great job with it. So to be quite honest with you, I definitely recommend Hogwarts Legacy to anybody who's big into Harry Potter or just really want to play something. It's definitely a game I recommend to try out because it is really good. Number 5, Detective Pikachu Returns. Detective Pikachu Returns was a game I was actually really excited to play ever since it first got announced that they were going to do a sequel. I was a big fan of the original Detective Pikachu on the 3DS, even before that they actually brought it to the West. After playing the Western version of it, I thought the game was actually pretty good. The puzzles are very reminiscent to the original Professor Layton games, and it's pretty much a point-and-click game that's very different from a lot of the Pokemon games. I was also a big fan of the live-action movie that came out for Detective Pikachu, and it probably is not just one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's definitely up there as one of the best Pokemon movies I've ever seen. It's definitely up there with the first movie for sure. Now, when it comes to Detective Pikachu Returns, I thought the sequel overall was pretty good, and it does leave off with what happened in the first game. The first game, I thought the ending was pretty short, and this game, did have the same thing where the ending was very, very short, which I'm not going to really spoil too much, especially for people that are very curious to actually play this game. But this game overall, I thought was really good, and there were some things that I actually really liked, and I really liked that it was actually on the Switch. That was kind of one of the things I really didn't like was I kind of wish that the original Detective Pikachu was on the Switch instead of the 3DS. Since the 3DS was kind of at the end of its life cycle at that point. But to be quite honest, the game still was a lot of fun, and same with the sequel. The sequel I thought was a lot of fun too. I would not mind if they actually made another one, and I actually am really excited for the sequel to the live-action movie whenever it's going to come out. But with that being said, I definitely recommend playing this game, and it is actually a really good game to play. Number 4, Persona 5 Tactica. Persona 5 Tactica was a game I was actually really excited to play since it first got announced. I'm pretty much an avid fan when it comes to the Persona franchise. I've started playing Persona 5 probably since it first came out. Love the game. I think the game is probably one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. So much so I actually started playing the previous games before Persona 5 and even played some of the spin-off games like Persona Q. Now when it comes to Tactica, Tactica is very similar to how Persona Q is, with most of the gameplay where it's most of a tactic game and it's more just like your standard JRPG style tactic games. It's kind of reminiscent of the Fire Emblem games. But when it comes to the characters, I just love every single character from the Persona 5 games. And that's what really sold me on this game. I just really like most of the characters from that game. And this game really does that well with every single character interaction and level ups. I just really like this game, and I highly recommend anybody who's really into Persona that's really going to like this game, because it is actually a really good game. Number 3, SpongeBob and the Cosmic Shake. SpongeBob and the Cosmic Shake was a platform I was pretty excited to play ever since THQ first announced they were going to make another SpongeBob game. I mean, I thought they did a pretty good job with the Battle for Bikini Bottom remake, and I thought that remake was pretty good. I do think they could have done a little bit more with it, add some new variety to it instead of just doing the online. The online was fine, but I don't really think anybody really cared for the online, but besides that, the remake was actually pretty good. When it came to Cosmic Shake really just blew me away, especially with most of the levels and just the variety and just the fact you can actually see a lot of the references from a lot of other things from SpongeBob. Honestly, I just think Cosmic Shake is a really good game. One of the complaints people have with it was really short, which, yes, I agree it was a little bit short, but it still was a lot of fun, and they definitely put a lot of effort in making this game. And that's one of the things I really like about Cosmic Shake. It's a game that I feel like most people that really love the SpongeBob games and actually grew up with SpongeBob really dig this game, and myself included really like this game a lot. Number 2, Disney Speedstorm. Disney Speedstorm was a racing game I kind of didn't know what to expect when it first came out. I mean, ever since the trailers, the promotions, and all the advertisements came out for this game, I kind of was a little bit skeptical because it kind of looked like it was going to be a generic racing game that was going to be just online, and it was going to have people buy cosmetics. It was just going to have people buy DLC, and to me, I'm not really big into those kind of games, especially Fortnite and stuff. I'm just not really into those games, but even if it was a Disney game, I still was kind of iffy. But regardless of it, the game, from what I know from people and actually from recommendations, I actually started playing the game, and I gotta say, I got really addicted to this game. I probably would say it's actually way better than the disappointing Crash Team Rumble, which I already did a video on that. The game was just completely terrible, and yes, the game is not really good. I do not recommend that game at all, but with that being said, let's talk about Speedstorm. Speedstorm was a game that I actually had a lot of fun with, especially with the fact that it was about Disney. It had a lot of Disney characters that you actually wouldn't think they would actually be a Mario Kart clone with Disney characters. Each different characters are really good based on their tracks, their carts, and the fact you can actually level up. Yeah, there's a lot of grinding, which again is kind of the same way that you kind of expect for a lot of games nowadays, where they kind of expect you to pay into DLC and cosmetics and stuff. I mean, again, it's kind of the same reminiscent of Fortnite, but to be honest, a lot of the DLC and a lot of the characters you can just basically kind of grind and get. But to be quite honest with you, the game and how it is, it's a lot of fun. The online I really dig. I think it's really good. And I also really think that they definitely should be making more content, and I would not mind actually supporting this game and actually get more content. I'm still waiting on to see if they actually will put a Little Mermaid DLC, but that's just me. But regardless of that, I thought the game overall was really good, and it's definitely a really good clone to Mario Kart. And I gotta say, I recommend anybody that actually plays or actually really likes Disney or really likes racing games, they're going to really like this game. It's definitely a lot of fun. My number one favorite game of 2023 is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. That's right, Mario Bros. Wonder is my favorite game of 2023. It's also my favorite Switch game of this year, so let's kind of put two in one package, which is even better. Now, what does there really say about Mario Bros. Wonder? To be quite honest with you, Mario Bros. Wonder is probably the best Mario game I've played in a long time. It's up there with Odyssey, it's up there with like most of Galaxy, it's up there with pretty much every single Mario game that's come to date. I wouldn't really say it's as good as the new Super Mario Bros., even though I do think that the new Super Mario Bros. Games are probably at this point outdated and they're not really as good as this game. I mean, in my opinion, Wonder is a lot better than those games, and the way that you can actually play as a lot of the characters is really what makes this game 100 times better. I really love how you actually could play as Peach, and Peach, even though she's my favorite Mario character, I really like how they actually made her playable in this game. Other characters you can play as well, which Daisy, Yoshi, Toad, Nabbit, and a lot of the other characters you can play as well. They just make this game a lot of fun, and to be quite honest, the multiplayer, despite how the multiplayer can be a little bit wonky, especially with how you actually play people, but it's still a lot of fun, and the single player is just as good as well. Honestly, I can't really say much more about this game other than the fact that it is literally one of my favorite Mario games. It definitely is a really good game, and I highly recommend anybody who's into Mario, or people if actually really want to play something new for the Switch, this game I highly recommend. It is definitely a great game to play, and it's definitely my favorite game this year. So that's all I can really say for games that I picked out for this year. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in more videos, and hope to see you guys for the next year. Thank you guys for watching.